Hi, this is Joe Blasco for MUA-TV, and this is MUA-TV's FYI, for your information. Today we're going to talk about the famous Westmores of Hollywood. The Westmore dynasty, the Westmore family, go back many, many decades. And the Westmores were actually the very first makeup artists to create department heads in all the major studios in Hollywood. Now, if you're a professional makeup artist, you're very familiar with the name Westmore. And let me show you this book here. This is called The Westmores of Hollywood. And I've had this book now for many, many years. And I have to tell you, and I'm sure that Marvin and Mike will be interested in hearing this, Marvin Westmore and Mike Westmore. I actually made Frank up in Los Angeles at ABC Television for the AMLA. It was AMLA, which was a morning show that was on ABC Television at the time. And it was my great pleasure, and I had just started working at ABC Television just for a few years, and one of the shows that I did was AMLA, and there were several guests that would come on every morning, and one of the guests on one morning was Mr. Frank Westmore. Now, I knew of Frank Westmore from the Cecil B. DeMille film, which is one of my favorite films of all time, which was the Ten Commandments. And so you can imagine me, a young Joe Blasco, young whippersnapper, you know, Mr. Makeup at ABC, having to go in to make up a member of the very, very famous Westmore dynasty, the Westmores of Hollywood. And so I went in, and Frank sat in the chair. He was a really, really sweet man, really nice. At least he was to me. And he sat in the chair, and he says, "Just do anything you want." He says, "I don't really care if I have any makeup," right? So we were working with Max Factor Pancake, you know, back then, and I took some Max Factor Tan number 2 and mixed it with a little bit of CTV 11 and did a really nice wash, you know, on him. Gave him a nice tan and took some number 2 shading Pancake and did some, you know, cutting of the jawline and whatnot, a little slenderizing of the face. Threw a little dark Technicolor cheek color on him, and a little natural number 2 Pancake under the eyes, you know, and blended it all out, and brushed out his eyebrows. And he looked in the mirror and he says, "Yeah, that's good, that'll work." So that was a, you know, real confirmation to me that I had finally arrived, you know, that a Westmore, a member of the original Westmore family, was telling me that the makeup that I had done on him was acceptable. Oh God, I'd sure like to meet Frank now and to talk to him. But these were this is a book that Frank Westmore wrote, and it's called The Westmores of Hollywood. And you know, it's got on the back, and I think, you know, this is really a very worthwhile book if you can find it. I have 2 of them actually. I have one at home in my library, and I have one here at MUA-TV. And on the back there are little short phrases from Fred Astaire, Jimmy Stewart, Jack Lemmon, Natalie Wood, and Eddie Albert. And what they say, you know, is really fantastic. The book is a real history. It depicts, you know, from the very beginning, all of the wonderful details of how the Westmores became the premier makeup artists in Hollywood. And it starts, and it says here, and I'll read this, and it says, "The Westmores are to Hollywood makeup what the Barrymores were to acting." And this was Army Archer in Variety. This was on the inside flap of the book. And this is what the book looks like without the cover. See the Westmores of Hollywood along the side here. And the thing that I love about this is that it actually has a family tree. It has George Westmore. Obviously, George Westmore was the great first Westmore, the granddaddy, and Daddy Westmore, so to speak, of all of the brothers and the one sister. And George Westmore was born in 1876. He passed away in 1931. And his sons were Monty Westmore, Perce Westmore, and Perce was the head of makeup at Warner Brothers, Ern Westmore, Wally Westmore. Wally was the head of makeup at Paramount, and Bud Westmore, who was the head of makeup at Universal International, as it was known for a portion of that time. And Frank Westmore was an independent freelance makeup artist, did many films, and is quite known for having done a lot of the really exquisite work and beard work on the Cecil B. DeMille film, The Ten Commandments. And you should see that film. If you're a student of makeup, you should see that film, because the makeup work in that film is really fantastic. Another makeup artist that I made acquaintance with, Harry Thomas, worked on that film as well. And he used to tell me that he was responsible for that Wally Westmore, who was the head of the department then, put him in charge of Edward G. Robinson. And he worked with Edward G. Robinson. That's unconfirmed. I don't know if, as far as I know, Frank could have done Edward G. Robinson, but I know that Frank was more or less in charge of all of the makeup for the Ten Commandments. So, and he was placed in charge of that by Wally Westmore, who was at that time his brother and the head of makeup at Paramount. And Monty Westmore, the original Monty Westmore, was a makeup artist who worked as a freelance artist as well, and he worked at MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and worked with stars like Clark Gable, Vivian Leigh, and he then later went on to head his own department at another studio. And so these are the famous Westmore brothers, the original Westmore brothers, and today we have several Westmores, still carrying on the wonderful family tradition of being some of Hollywood's finest makeup artists. And Marvin Westmore, who you all know as being the creator and the director of the Westmore Academy, is still running his school, operating his school, and still working in the industry. And Marvin was, for the longest time, president of the Craft Committee for Local 706. I believe for 6 years he was president of Craft. And president overall, and on the executive board of Local 706. And he did, and I think one of the most famous films that Marvin did was Blade Runner, one of my favorite films. And if you recall in Blade Runner, that scene where the airbrush is going over the actress's face and it blacks out her eyes, and it's a very futuristic makeup, like an eye makeup of the future. I believe that is, if I'm not wrong, Marvin's hand actually doing that. So he was responsible for all of the wonderful makeups in that great film, classic film, Blade Runner. And then there's Monty Jr., all right, who recently passed away. And I had a great opportunity of being able to meet Monty Jr. at one of the makeup artist trade shows in Pasadena. And he and I stood there for quite some time, and we talked about all sorts of makeup items. And he was the kindest, sweetest, most gentle of men that I've ever met outside of Vincent Kehoe. And I got to say, these old timers, they've got such class, and such sophistication, and the amount of knowledge that they have is so insurmountable. They are, in fact, great tributes to the Hollywood makeup aura, all right? The entire makeup arena, as it is today, owes its current state of being to these predecessors, these people who came before us, and who were the real pioneers of makeup artistry. And the Westmores, that family, the Westmore family, is the largest makeup family, makeup dynasty that ever existed, and still to this day does exist. And so I have to call your attention to this book, the Westmores of Hollywood. And I think that if you don't have this in your library, you're going to want to try to look for it. Maybe on Amazon.com you may be able to find it, or on eBay someone may have a copy of this. I don't believe that it's still in print, but I would really make it my business to try and find it, because it really is such fabulous reading. And the pictures in here are unbelievable. There are pictures in here. There are pictures of Frederick March as Dr. Jekyll, as Mr. Hyde, actually, with the makeup that Wally Westmore did. And there are pictures here of Frank Westmore at a very young age. Here's a picture of George Westmore with his wife, Anita, and their daughter, Patricia. And there are other pictures here. Let me see, what's this? Rudolph Valentino in 1922. It's just amazing how far back the Westmores actually went. Here's Betty Davis as Queen Elizabeth, made up by Perce Westmore in Elizabeth the Queen, Elizabeth and Essex. Elizabeth and Essex. The private lives of Elizabeth and Essex. And if you haven't seen that film, you should see it, because in that film she has a bald cap that she's wearing and a flaming red curly wig, and it's really exquisitely done. Really, really fantastic. And Perce was probably, of all the Westmores, of all the Westmore brothers, Perce Westmore was probably the one that you hear most about. Secondly, followed, by Wally. Perce was the head of, like I said, he was the head of makeup at Warner Brothers, and then Wally was head at Paramount and Bud at Universal. But there are pictures here of Perce, doing a face mold of Ruby Keeler, and oh God, there's pictures of the salon. There's pictures of the interior of the House of Westmore salon that was on Sunset Boulevard, between La Cienega. No, it was between La Brea and Coenga on Sunset Boulevard, across the street from the big, beautiful Catholic cathedral. And there's two views of the very lavish lobby here, just beautiful. I actually opened my school across the street from there in the crossroads of the world, because I knew the history of the building, and I wanted to be close to that, as a kid, that's how I thought. And so again, the passion, And so then there are wonderful pictures here of all of the Westmores. There's a great picture here of all the brothers here, and I'll show this to you here. We'll go in for a close-up of this. And that's just terrific. And then there's Ola Carroll, who I believe she was so beautiful, applying makeup to Shirley Dean at the House of Westmore in 1938. And Ola, I believe, went on to actually help Marvin, I think I'm right, at the Marvin Westmore Academy in Burbank for years. And here's a picture of Frank Westmore with Cecil B. DeMille. And there's a picture of Frank sitting on top of a camel when on location. And so, it's just a great book. Oh, these are just fantastic pictures. There's a picture of Frank doing a burn victim, and from the Towering Inferno, with another picture with Robert Wagner. You just have to, you have to see this book to believe it, and you have to read it also to really be able to appreciate the breadth and scope that the Westmore dynasty had throughout the days of their original reign in Hollywood. And so now, in carrying on the Westmore tradition, we have today Marvin G. Westmore, a colleague of mine, who has a makeup school as well, and who is quite an excellent makeup artist and educator. And there is Michael Westmore, who I know you all know from the work that he did in supervising all of the fantastic makeup in Star Trek and all the Star Trek films and television shows. And so the Westmore legacy continues, and rightly so it should. And with their sons and daughters, it will continue long into the future. And I'm very pleased to have the acquaintance of these fine gentlemen. And I'm hoping through MUA-TV that our friendship will grow and that they can also become an active part of our MUA-TV programming. And I would like that very much. And what we have here now is the fact that I'm very pleased to report, and that fact is that the Westmores of Hollywood are going to finally, after all of these years, long overdue, they're going to be receiving an actual star on Hollywood Boulevard. And that really makes you want to say, hooray for Hollywood. All right. Now, Max Factor has a star. I believe John Chambers may have a star. But the Westmores, who have done so much for the art of makeup throughout the years, these famous brothers, the father and all the famous brothers and their sons who still live today, are finally now being recognized as part of the Hollywood legacy, part of the dynasty of fabulous makeup artists who made the makeup business in Hollywood what it is today, or helped make it what it is today, who actually created the first makeup departments in film. And let me tell you about this. It has right here, and as far as you can go to www.westmoremuseum.com to read about this. And it says Westmores of Hollywood received star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And this is going to be October 3rd, 2008, October 3rd. And it says legendary makeup men, the Westmores of Hollywood, will receive their star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2008. The official word from Hollywood's honorary mayor and Walk of Fame chairman, Johnny Grant. Right? And it says, today I'm happy to announce an array of celebrities who have earned this recognition for a combination of professional achievement and community involvement. Pioneers of their industry, the announcement came in January. Johnny pointed out that Westmores not only created but defined the role of makeup artists in motion pictures, period. And wig maker George Westmore started as a wig maker. And it's pretty ironic. That's exactly how Max Factor started. So you had these two great, artists at that time working, side by side. And George Westmore went on to create the House of Westmore makeup products, an extremely large line of makeup, throughout the 1930s, 1940s, and into the 50s. That I remember as a kid purchasing and working with when I was first learning makeup. And I remember the name Westmore on all the eyebrow pencils. They used to call them dermatograph pencils then. Dermatograph pencils for the eyebrow pencils. And it was like derma and graph, dermatograph. So anyway, I just want to say to the world that I think this is absolutely long overdue, and it's wonderful that finally the Westmores are being given the credit by the Hollywood community that they do deserve, and that they are going to be receiving this wonderful gift of a star on Hollywood Boulevard. And I'm going to be speaking with the Westmores, and perhaps also arranging, if possible, to have an interview with them about this. And I see that they are also right here. Let's see. It's a really big deal to get a star on Hollywood Boulevard. And they are there's one thing in here. Let's see here. It says here, visit our website and to become involved as well as to donate. It's www.westmoremuseum.com. And to get a star on Hollywood Boulevard with publicity and whatnot, and all of the arrangements that have to be made, and all of the materials that have to be bought, to make the star and all this and that, it's quite expensive. So if you're interested in donating to the Westmore Star, you can go to www.westmoremuseum.com, and there you will find all of the information necessary for you to be able to become someone involved with the Star. And I think MUA-TV is going to do that. In fact, I can guarantee you that MUA-TV is going to become involved in donating to help make this Star possible. right, so, you know, there's so much that can be said about these wonderful men. Here's another book, and women. This is one of, I believe, one of Marvin's daughters. I believe it's Marvin's daughter that is also now a makeup artist. And there's Kevin Westmore, his son. This is a book written by Michael Westmore. All right, Michael Westmore, and it is The Art of Theatrical Makeup for Stage and Screen. And this was, wow, this was written, this has been a while. And it, you know, it has great, you know, great charts, you know, great charts in here. And it's honestly very, very informative. And it's terrific for students. You know, it's really terrific. It has all the, you know, the basic and several advanced techniques, and it teaches, you know, a little bit of everything here. And this is part of my library. I have such an extensive library, but I'm very pleased, you know, to have these books from the Westmores that talk about the Westmores and the family and what they did and who they were and when they lived. And of course, this book by Michael Westmore. So if you, as I said, if you are interested in getting more information concerning the Westmores receiving this wonderful tribute, go to www.westmoremuseum.com. And I'm going to keep you updated from week to week of the progress of all of this, with the Westmores receiving this wonderful tribute and this star on Hollywood Boulevard. And so for MUA TV, reporting on the famous Westmores of Hollywood, this is Joe Blasco.